The most senior lawyers in your own administration and on your campaign told you that after you'd lost more than 60 legal challenges, that it was over. Why did you ignore them and decide to listen to a new outside group?
Because I didn't respect them.
You'd hired
lawyers,
them.
Sure, but that doesn't mean, you hire them, you never met these people, you get a recommendation, they turn out to be rhinos or they turn out to be not so good. In many cases, I didn't respect them, but I did respect others. I respected many others that said the election was rigged.
You called some of your outside lawyers. You said they had crazy theories. Why were you listening to them? Were you listening to them because they were telling you what you wanted to hear?
You know who I listened to myself? I saw what happened. I watched that election, and I thought the election was over at 10 o'clock in the evening.
You were listening to your instincts.
My instincts are a big part of it. That's been the thing that's gotten me to where I am, my instincts. But I also listen to people. There are many lawyers. I could give you many books. There are books that are written on how the election was rigged. There are numerous books that were written on how the election was rigged.
Just to be clear, were you listening to your lawyer's advice or were you listening to your own instincts?
I was listening to different people, and when I added it all up, the election was rigged. There are books
were you
that are
calling
written.
The shots, though?
In fact, Molly Hemingway wrote a great book.
But were you
called
calling
Rigged.
the shots ultimately?
Excuse me. Molly Hemingway, who's highly respected and great, she wrote a book, a best-selling book called Rigged.
Were you calling the shots, though, Mr. President, ultimately?
As to whether or not I believed it was rigged, oh, sure. It was my decision, but I listened to some people. Some people said that. Like guys like Bill Barr, he was a stiff, but he wasn't there at the time. But he didn't do his job because he was afraid. You know what he was afraid of? He was afraid of being impeached. He was petrified to be impeached. And how do you not get impeached? Don't do anything.
Former President Donald Trump still firmly believes that the 2020 election was rigged. Not that he's the first person to not take full credit for his loss, because if you remember back in 2016, whenever Hillary Clinton lost, she later claimed that the election was stolen from her and that Trump was an illegitimate president and that Russia. So she wasn't exactly taking full credit for her loss either, not that she's getting the same treatment. And of course, this is the same Hillary Clinton that wasn't so great at the handling of her classified documents and her personal email in her basement in New York. And so even though she wasn't indicted on such matters, Trump was. And Trump is now saying that even if he does get convicted and then becomes president, even with that, he would not pardon himself if he becomes the next president of the United States in 2024. Hillary Clinton, of course, remains unconvinced. Watch.
Another person whose skin you've gotten under is Donald Trump, of course, who is facing 4 indictments, as we know. He recently said that he is it would be very unlikely that he would attempt to pardon himself. Do you believe him?
I don't believe him on anything. Why would I start believing him on that? The thing about him, and I'm not the only person who's noticed this, is he engages in what psychologists call projection. So whenever he accuses somebody else of doing something, it's almost guaranteed he's doing it himself or he's already done it. Or whenever he denies thinking about doing something or doing it, it's almost guaranteed he is thinking about it or he's already done it.
Before I let you go, there's now been a date set for the impeachment hearings, so-called, I'm going to put them in quotes, for President Biden. There's a disagreement in the Democratic Party on how to deal with this because there's no proof. They're in pursuit of a reason. What do you think they should be doing?
Well, first of all, I don't know how they can proceed with an impeachment if they haven't had a vote. And maybe I missed it because I've been so busy here at CGI
trying to
be
you've been inspired,
positive, and come up with solutions to our problems, which is what I like to think about. So I don't know how they're just basically blowing off the process. There's no there, and in fact, it seems they know there's no there, and sadly, the Speaker of the House is too weak to stand up against the most rabid, block of his members who don't care what the truth or the facts are. They just want to, be able to grandstand and try to cause President Biden problems. I mean, it's not a real threat. It's a terrible bother. But more than that, it is a real confession by the Republican Party. They have no agenda. They have no interest in trying to bring people together to solve problems. I have said for years, because I was in the Senate when I voted for immigration reform, as a majority of the Senate did, and George W. Bush said he would sign it, and the House wouldn't take it up, because they don't want a solution to what's happening on the border. They want a political problem that they can try to use for their own benefit. That's what this is, to keep, the base, whoever that is, in some parts of our country all riled up while they make up stuff that has no basis in fact. It is no way to run a great country, and the only way we're going to get through this, Jen, is by defeating them. People say to me all the time, well, what can we do? And I say, well, you can vote. And they go, well, what else? I said, that's the most important thing.
That's the one.
That's it. You get up there and you vote, and you vote for people who actually want to get things done and don't traffic in lies and falsehoods and hatred and divisiveness. That's what you can do to help our country.
And obviously, this interview between Jim Psaki and Hillary Clinton was on MSNBC, a network that famously aren't the biggest fans of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump says if he becomes the president in 2024, he's actually going to investigate MSNBC for treason against the country. So on Truth Social, he took there to post about that. He said they are almost all dishonest and corrupt, but Comcast, with its one-sided and vicious coverage by NBC News, and in particular MSNBC, often incorrectly referred to as MSDNC, should be investigated for its country-threatening treason. Their endless coverage of the now fully debunked scam known as Russia, 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 and much else is one big campaign contribution to the radical left Democrat Party. I say up front, openly and proudly, that when I win the presidency of the United States, they and others of the lamestream media will be thoroughly scrutinized for their knowingly dishonest and corrupt coverage of people, things, and events. Why should NBC or any other corrupt and dishonest media companies be entitled to use the very valuable airwaves of the USA free? They are a true threat to democracy and are, in fact, the enemy of the people. The fake news media should pay a big price for what they have done to our once great country. So Trump right there is threatening some pretty big actions against MSNBC if he does in fact become the next president of the United States in 2024. Let me know what your thoughts are on that below. And in addition to that, we actually had a new poll come out yesterday from ABC and Washington Post showing that Trump has a massive lead on current President Biden by 10 points. Of course, the Washington Post is downplaying the results of this poll, saying, oh, it's not true. There's no way this could actually happen. It's a complete outlier. So according to Fox News, former President Donald Trump is currently leading President Biden by 10 points among voters, according to a new poll. The Washington Post and ABC released a poll Sunday, which found that if the 2024 presidential election were held today, Trump would win 52% to 42% over Biden. Respondents also held a poor view of Biden's handling of the economy and the U.S.-Mexico border, in addition to his age. The Post downplayed the results of its own poll after it showed Trump with such a commanding lead, however. The Post said, the sizable margin of Trump's lead in the survey is significantly at odds with other public polls that shows the general election contest a virtual dead heat. The difference between this poll and others, as well as the unusual makeup of Trump's and Biden's coalitions in this survey, suggests it is probably an outlier. And if we look at other polling here, other than this one that shows Trump with a 10-point lead, the others are pretty much a virtual dead heat. We have a tie in the NBC News poll, a tie in the Emerson poll, a tie in the Yahoo News poll. So it is a dead heat, but with this post from ABC News and Washington Post, Trump does have a 10-point lead. This is the biggest one yet. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. But that's all we have for today's video. Hope you stay safe, and I will see you in the next video.